The Department of Justice has announced plans to appeal key parts of a ruling granting former President Donald Trump's request for a third-party special master to review documents seized by the FBI during a search of Mar-a-Lago last month. In that order, Trump-appointed Judge Aileen Cannon temporarily blocked investigators from reviewing the material seized from the former president's Florida residence, including what the DOJ says are highly sensitive classified documents, like the ones you see on the screen now. The Justice Department is now seeking to get that order overturned, arguing that pausing their, quote, critically important work could harm the government's efforts to protect our national security interests. And joining us now to break this all down, our legal experts, Glenn Kirshner is with us, and Joyce Vance. Both are MSNBC legal analysts. Both were former federal prosecutors. Glenn, I will start with you. Break down the DOJ's appeal for us. What are the arguments? Lay them out.
Yeah, so I think the most compelling and pointed argument they make is they say, look, we're going to file an appeal. We've already given notice that we're going to file an appeal, but we need you to reconsider one aspect of your ruling, and kind of broken down to its essence, Erlina. Judge Cannon said, look, I'm going to let the intelligence community continue to assess the risk to our national security, but I'm not going to let the FBI and the prosecutors conduct a factual criminal investigation surrounding these classified documents. What the Department of Justice very compellingly and pointedly, but with great respect and deference, brought to Judge Cannon's attention is, look, the intelligence community cannot assess the damage to national security until there is some factual development of, for example, who Donald Trump may have shown these documents to. Think about this. If Donald Trump took one of those classified documents from the White House and unlawfully concealed it at Mar-a-Lago, and he kept it in his breast pocket the entire time and never showed it to anybody, that would present one set of facts that would lead the intelligence community to assess perhaps minimal damage. But if we, look to another set of facts, Donald Trump took it out of his pocket regularly and showed it to people, let them copy it, snap pictures of it. Maybe he shared it with people who were covert foreign intelligence operatives. That would present a very different set of facts that the intelligence community would then assess as perhaps, doing great damage to our national security. You kind of can't have one without the other. And that seems to be the thrust of what the Department of Justice has told Judge Cannon.
And Joyce, to that point, it feels like, as Glenn is explaining there, they're kind of giving her an out here. I mean, is she in an impossible position? Because basically what she's saying is, let's appoint this mysterious person that really can't meet all of the conditions necessary. They have to be agreed to by both sides. I mean, that condition basically breaks down the process even before you begin. But also the fact that the assessment to our national security, it's almost like she's out over her skis and out of her depth on this one because the issues are above her head. I mean, how do you see it in terms of what the DOJ is setting up here? Are they giving her an out? Do you agree with what Glenn just laid out in terms of the analysis?
I think it's an elegant strategy that DOJ is using here because they've carved out the very worst part of her order. And by that, I mean the part that's virtually indefensible. And DOJ has identified a tranche of about 100, they say slightly more than 100 classified documents. And what they've asked the judge to do is to stay her order to prevent it from going into effect just as to these 100 documents, which would mean that they would be able to continue using them in the criminal case, and also those documents wouldn't go to a special master. And as Glenn says, one of the really important implications of that request is that the judge inadvertently, perhaps, because she said that the intelligence community work should go forward, but she has managed to shut down the intelligence community's assessment with the DNI saying that she cannot move forward because this order compromises the ability of the FBI to participate in the classified review. And what the judge apparently didn't contemplate is that the FBI, which is one of the intelligence community partners, is an entity with primary jurisdiction when it comes to conducting investigations in the domestic United States. They can do things that the CIA or other entities can't do on domestic soil. So Judge Cannon has really put the government into a box here, restricting the intelligence community's risk assessment. And that ultimately is the weakness that may cause her to reconsider.
And Glenn, one of the things I've been thinking a lot about this week is maybe this whole special master thing is a big old distraction from the actual point, which is, why did Donald Trump take the documents? What were they for? And why didn't he give them back when he was asked many times? Do you have an answer to that actual question? Because I feel like the special masterpiece is like a sideshow when we should be focusing on the real questions here.
And Zerlina, the questions you just asked are the questions that we need to have answered courtesy of a criminal investigation. Listen, how many times have we seen Donald Trump litigate for the purpose of delaying, or file frivolous lawsuits or legal challenges to just basically throw some sand in the ointment? That has been Donald Trump's MO for a very long time, and he has been very successful delaying, the ultimate day of justice, running out any number of clocks in the process. But I'll tell you, Zerlina, and Joyce knows better than I because, she really is an appellate expert. The brief that the Department of Justice filed, asking for this partial stay, asking her to reconsider a piece of her legal ruling, is so strong that I have to believe if Judge Cannon is an honest broker of the law, she will have to be persuaded by what DOJ put in that filing.
Joyce, do you think she's an honest broker of the law? I think that we would hope so. She's a judge. That is what judges are supposed to be doing. But she is a Trump-appointed judge, and people have been asking the question, does that matter in this case? Because, they make some decisions that make us scratch our heads a lot.
So no one becomes a federal judge without being appointed by a president of one party or the other, right? That's how they all get on the federal bench, via the political appointment process. And by and large, the federal judiciary has served the country very well. Judge Cannon now has a couple of options. She can take advantage of the option that DOJ has suggested. She herself has entered an order that the Trump lawyers respond by Monday morning at 10 a.m. with their position on DOJ's motion. Perhaps she hopes that they'll make it easy on her by conceding that as to the classified materials, DOJ should be entitled to go forward. There are a lot of possible off-ramps here out of the judge's order, but the biggest one leads straight to Atlanta and the 11th Circuit, where DOJ may ultimately take an appeal.
Glenn Kirshner and Joyce Vance, I feel smarter today because I've talked to both of you, and I am grateful for you joining today. Thank you so much for being here, and please stay safe.
Hi, I'm Zerlina Maxwell. Thanks for checking out our channel on YouTube. You can see more from Zerlina by clicking any of the videos on this screen, and make sure you subscribe below to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. Thanks for watching.